So you had, it sounds like, you know, you have school, MMA, working, water polo, right? Like what? So, but you've accomplished, if you were the highest ranking female from the class, is that,
so
walk us
for
through
that
that?
year, highest ranking female. The first at RXO, I think BMI has the one position beat me, but that's hopefully because I did my position. But yeah, the RXO is the second highest in command. It's your senior year, and you're in charge of all of the training for the freshmen, the rats, and then all of the staff. So, and you know, obviously, military, it's a lot easier to understand because that's how we do it in the military. But yeah, you have all the staff. You're the executive officer of the staff, and then you're in charge of all the cadet training. And talking about being a female, right, and being in that position. I'll say that the commandant at that time, so it wasn't Trump's, because he was the one that asked me the question, and then he left.
But the he was there when I was there.
Yeah. He interviewed me, and one of the questions was like, "What do you think of these ladies going for higher positions, knowing that there's a different expectation?" Like that was what he said in the interview. It's like, yeah, there's going to be different expectations being a female at a military school. And my flat out answer was, anybody going for these positions already knows that expectation is going to supersede it. So you don't even need to ask that question to people because they already know, right? Like, and we're talking about college, right? A guy sleeps with 5 girls and nothing happens. The girl sleeps with one guy, and it's the talk of the town because it's such a small school. Right. But yeah, that following commandant, after I was selected that year, we're doing that initial week where we're all training, like all the cadre are training. And he comes up to me and he goes, so the way it is, it's a rectangle, and you shout from the furthest end, right? So you're hitting the other side. So you're shouting from to the longest distance, or yelling. And he goes, don't you want to maybe stand on the other side, like shorten the distance? And in my head, I was like, this motherfucker, like, do you know what you're trying to, like, do you know what you're putting me in a position? Like, so I've said, well, I didn't say that because he was higher ranked than me and would have gotten me in trouble. But I was like, sir, with all due respect, I'm the first female. I'm not going to change something that's been done for like the last how many years, because I'm like, I get what you're saying, sir, but I don't need it. Like, don't come to me with that bullshit. Like, again, we're in this position, we're choosing it for a reason.
Right.
And General P told me after that was the best he's ever heard it. So it was a crazy, awesome experience. But yeah, some of the commandant staff didn't necessarily like me because I didn't quite care that they didn't like me, and I just did my own thing. You know what I mean?
Well, that's good. I mean, you're pushing equality, you know, in the correct way. Like, hey, I don't need a pat on the back. I'm here to do the job. Don't look at my gender. Don't look at
don't make it look don't make it easier. Don't make it like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it my way. I know how to shout. That's again my martial arts experience, yelling the whole time. Like, I can get loud if you need me to get loud. And the fact that you're asking me it isn't an insult. So let's just move on. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I know it's an asshole the whole time, but
it's so cool to hear, because listening to the story, and you know, going back to like your dad, how he's preparing you, and then how you're constantly being challenged but rising to the occasion. And it's a little different, but you know, as you're talking, I can't help but think of my Aunt Julie. So she's retired Marine Corps, but she was a badass, and it was like early 80s, I think, is when she went in, or late 70s. I mean, it was like a different world, right? So I just think of when you're telling that story, I'm like, you know, like you said, the challenges you face, but you had that toughness about you to to push through, and probably inspired a lot of change within the other cadets and you know, students and whatnot that are around you, you know. So that's pretty cool stuff.
It was probably the first experience where I realized. So I went for RCO, I went for the highest one, and then gosh, he's gonna kill me that I forgot his name. The guy that lived there the whole time, Colonel Delta. He's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill me. I can't think of it. he was like the funny one, the a-hole. It's like Gary or something. Gary.
Oh, you're talking about
Come on. Levinson? Is it Levinson?
Levinson.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you
Jeez,
Yeah.
I was
go.
gonna die.
Ding,
I was
ding,
gonna
ding, ding.
die.
We got it.
Yeah. So we had a nickname for him, which is called L Train.
Yes.
Because like, dude, luckily, I don't know. I'm sure Elise stayed out of trouble even, but I had a lot of friends who did certain things that would cause them to get locked down for like the whole year. And they were not allowed to leave barracks. They were was pretty much in jail for the whole year because possibly alcohol was involved and they acted a fool. So yeah, he was a tough guy. He did not, if you got that, you were,
Yeah,
he
we were
was
on his
gonna,
shit list. It was no good. Yeah. But so he was the one that came up to me. He's like, hey, I've been talking to everybody. What about RXO? And I hadn't necessarily thought about that position, but I was like, sure.
Mhm.
And it was the first time where I started to look at leadership and different opportunities as not just like, not for me, but where can we build a sphere? Like the bigger the sphere, the more impact you have, the more you can help, the more you can change and make that influence. And so I was like, yeah, I was like, I'll go to the highest one. Let's go. And so they asked me for RXO and I was like, sure, I'll take RXO.
Cool.
It's a little bit
Good
more
deal.
fun of a job anyways.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to transition a little bit. So as you're doing martial arts, talk to us a little bit about kind of that transition as you're doing that through schooling, and then, just kind of walk us through like a little bit of your style, your training background, how you got to kind of mix martial arts a little bit, and then we can kind of unpack what that looks like for you.
Yeah. So I mean, I think if you haven't, if your listeners haven't realized by now, I have the story that is pretty much everything that you could ever do. I just say yes, and we see where it goes from there. And I think that's just how I am, which is been very fun and exciting, at least recently, right? But so I did martial arts for a really long time. I knew I went to college. I commissioned in the reserves, knowing I wanted to run a school. But I'm very competitive. And I told my coach, I was like, listen, so this was my sophomore year in college. I said, listen, I want to fight. I did a full contact kickboxing when I was like 15, 16, 17. I then fought somebody. I did pretty well. I at least knew if I got hit, I could hit back hard. Like I knew I wasn't going to cower. So I told them, I just want to do one. I know that I'm not training a lot because I was doing swimming and water polo, not even close to anything martial arts. I was like, give me the summer. I'll do one, and then we'll go from there. So the first fight was 15 seconds. We drove all the way down to Virginia because I'm now living, I'm in New Jersey. We go down to Virginia. We wait till 11:30, and it's over in 15 seconds. And I was like, so you can't tell me no now, right? Because we're just now.
That's when you were 20, right? Was that your first amateur fight?
My first fight, 2013. So that was in July, and then I graduated college, and we kind of went on a run where we just got as many fights as we could. And then I had to go overseas for the Army, and then I came back, and we just kept growing. It was really something where I always like to be moving, learning, building, and so MMA was a really nice medium for me that I knew martial arts enough to where I was competitive in MMA, but then I had all of this that I didn't know, like ground, clinch work, Muay Thai, elbows. Like I was putting myself in a position, learning where I could learn a lot. And I ended up getting 2 belts as an amateur. And that last fight as an amateur, I finished her in the second round. It was a gorgeous fight. I think she's a pro now. It was a gorgeous fight. She said, bricks don't hit back, bitch. And then I said, okay, that's fine. But I hit really hard, so you're going to see it later. And I finished her in the second round. I said, I made you my brick. But it was good. So it was like the one fight where I was feeling really good, and we knew that we're going to go pro. And then we turned pro in October of 2019. So it's not a story where you have somebody that likes martial arts and it's like, I'm going to fight and I'm going to be in the UFC. I'm going to be the best thing that's ever, like, it was more of my coach and I on this little journey where we're like, okay, we did really well. Okay, we knocked that girl out. Okay, now we have a belt. Now we have 2 belts. Okay, let's go pro. And it was this it was this journey. It was like him challenging himself in the journey, me challenging myself, and we're now at this point where we're like, let's fucking go. Like now it's on.
Sometimes it's like when the stars align and you fall into your path. There's a funny story. I don't know if you've ever seen Ronnie Coleman, who was 8-time Mr. Olympia. I'm sure you've seen videos where he's like, yeah, buddy, lightweight, that he's lifting all these pounds. Well, he became pretty much the best bodybuilder of all time.
Yeah.
He started doing it because the owner of the gym offered him a free membership if he competed. And he was like, oh, okay. So that's sort of funny. That's along those lines.
Yeah, it was I'd say Cage Fury in 2020 after COVID. So COVID hit, then I stayed ready, like just because that's probably the Army stuff and just who I am as a person. I don't like to get out of shape. And so come August or June, they were like, hey, we have this fight. It's a 125 going down to 115. And I fought at 105 initially as a pro. Can you go up to 115? I said, yeah. I said, just make sure that she makes weight, because if she doesn't make weight, I'm not going to fight. So then they made it a title fight as in a professional regional organization, CFFC. I was like, okay. I was like, second fight, now it's a title fight. I'll go. And then some of the fights fell through, and it became a main event. So it was COVID. So right? Second fight. And this girl was 4-0. She's in the UFC now. Her name is Jasmine. She was 4-0. She had fought in the organization, I want to say twice. And so they were pretty much giving her an opportunity to get into the UFC, because everybody that got a title gets into the UFC, at least a lot. They have a really good promotion. So if you have a title and you can defend it, then you're probably going to get into the UFC. So they thought that they were going to just roll over me. They're going to give her the belt. And I took it. It was a split decision.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I had a belt second fight in my professional career, and I defended it. And then the rest was UFC. So it happened very quickly. But it's been a hell of a ride, so it's good.
Awesome.
For someone really quick, for someone who's from the outside, how do you, and I don't know if Joe, you were going to go into this, but
no, go ahead.
How do you transition from, a federation that is professional in fighting, in mixed martial arts, and you sign with the UFC? Do they contact you? Do you guys have to contact them? How does that work?
So you have an agent, right? So I had an agent. And so I think what happened was, I called him out, I think, on the interview. I was like, hey, Dana, what's up? I think I did that off the cage as well. You're high on life at that point. Right. But I think it was also, they start telling your agent, hey, they're asking for matchups. Like they're now seeing you as, top 5 of the 115s or the 125s that could go in. And so my first fight in the UFC was not the dumbest decision, because I'm in the UFC, but it was not the smartest decision. If you were to balance it, it was probably on the lower end of the spectrum. Because she was a 135 coming down to 125, and I went up to 125, and she was like 140 in the cage, and I was 120. But yeah, it was miserable. It was fine. It looks bad if you Google it. Don't do it now. But I think I'm a meme on Reddit, and it's do you want to be a fighter? So that was cool. But it's just this background stuff, and then they say, hey, we've got a matchup, and the previous regional promotion releases you, obviously, because now they can say that you're in the UFC, and the UFC takes you, and now you're theirs. So it's not as crazy. I think the competition is completely different. I'd say that was the biggest. That's the biggest welcome, where you're like, okay, people have gotten paid before, but they were getting paid 1 month rent, and now they're getting paid half a year's rent. It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Right.
People are coming in there in terms of their grit and their determination. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So how many fights all in at UFC? And I know you have something coming up.
Yeah. So I have 4 in the UFC, 6 and 2 now, and then I have another fight set for February.
Okay. And where's that fight at? It's overseas, right? Yeah. Okay.
Korea. Yeah.
Which UFC is that? What number? What?
Oh, I don't know. It's a fight night, from what I believe.
Okay.
And I think they're trying to get the Korean Zombie to jump back in.
Oh, okay. So they're trying to push that.
Yeah. So I think it's gonna be a lot of I'm gonna be the underdog and the person coming from, you know, I'm gonna be the away team per usual.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll take it.
I honestly I love it. I make my friends some money, you know what I mean? And we just all hang out after. So it's all good. Yeah.